You ready, Chris?
You ready, Ben?
Let's get it.
Man, let's get it, man. Welcome to the Follow Then Lead podcast.
Today, we have our special guest, Stacy. Okay.
I got you. I got you. I knew this was going to happen.
You knew it. I'll do it,
I was
too.
like, people be pausing. It's Tchouanguem. When you look at it, it looks like 5,000 letters, but it's 11.
All right, say your whole name one more time.
Stacy Tchouanguem.
Tchouanguem.
Perfect.
Okay.
2 syllables.
And where are you from?
I'm from Cameroon.
Cameroon.
Yeah.
And where is Cameroon? For those that might not know.
Cameroon is right next to Nigeria.
Okay.
It is like in the armpit of, I call it the armpit of Africa.
the
Like a
little,
little
like-
curve.
yeah.
In a little curve. Right there, smack dab in the middle.
And that is West Africa
Yes, sir.
in its finest.
Yes, sir.
Did you know that land was called Judah?
I do. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a throwback.
Yeah.
That's a throwback.
That's a hidden gem people don't know.
Listen, it's because it's Africa. A lot of people don't know a lot of things about
Yeah,
Africa.
that whole land.
It's phenomenal for a reason.
It is. It's beautiful.
It's gold itself.
And all of those people that were there that were like,
Man.
taken on the boats
Ugh,
around the world.
the history lessons. Yeah. Listen, we just want to
That's why the Israelites have a
Yeah,
have something to say about the world.
they do be having something to say about the world.
Well, I'm glad you're here. This is awesome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Podcasts are cool, and to have the opportunity to just be on a podcast is really awesome.
Yeah, and for us to have you on is special because we're kind of moving in the same direction, just in the work that we want to do.
Yeah.
And can you talk about like a little bit of the work that you do
Ooh.
and your mission, ministry, purpose?
Ooh, the heavy question. I work with young women ages 16 through 24. I work with them, I mentor them, I support them through school, emotional support, getting a job, right? Like those type of logistics. But a good portion of what I do is to help them discover what's already there. I was easily that kid who apparently had a bunch of different talents, but I didn't know it. I wasn't aware of what I could do. I was just told to go to school and get good grades and, go to college, get that degree.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that I had like really good interpersonal skills. I didn't know that I was really good at connecting with people and helping them. And so I really wanted to put myself in a place where I was able to give that platform for young women to figure out, like, you can do this too, whatever your natural giftedness is. I tend to say that I'm that girl who was always late to her own party.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else would notice before I did. And then when I did, they'd look at me like, we've been telling you this for a while now.
Welcome.
Exactly. And, it was a weakness of mine, but I'm like, how can I turn this weakness into a positive? Now that I'm finally arriving to my party, let me, welcome others into their own as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at right now in my world. Working on that part of my business is like really rewarding. It's hard work, but it's really rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So before we get into more of that, we'll
Mm-hmm.
save that for later.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. It was a slow day, but
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I got up. I've been cold. So ever since October hit, the morning's like 52 degrees
Yeah.
and my body's not adjusting to that.
Okay.
So I'm convinced that it's cold all day. So I don't want to get out of my house.
Yeah. And you work from home. for
And
the
I
most
work
part.
from home.
Okay.
But I had to go out today because I had a meeting with one of my mentees and then it was 61 degrees. And I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad.
It was a weird day.
I can do this today. So that helped kind of propel the rest of my day into this evening. And so today's cool.
That's
It's
good.
relaxed, chill.
Yeah, I understand the weather thing,
Yeah.
Being cold and kind of, for most of my life, I've always been a hot person,
Mm-hmm.
Just being a big, tall guy, just,
Right.
generate heat,
Mhm.
and even when like I go to bed in the wintertime, my windows are open because I'm hot.
Wow.
When I go to bed, like, I'm hot. I need it to be cooler in the room
Right.
so I can feel comfortable. And now, so I shaved my head this past summer.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah, I shaved it because I didn't. It's not that I wanted to shave it. It's
Okay.
just I needed to. It was time. It was time to let it go. I didn't want to be George Jefferson. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I shaved it, and it's been a good thing. Got a lot of love,
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize how cold the world was not having my insulation.
Yeah.
So I'm always wearing a beanie now because it's cold.
Yeah, I need to buy a beanie because I shaved my head a couple of times in the past 3 months.
Okay.
And when the wind hits a specific direction, it it hits you. You know what I mean?
And it keeps your body temperature down.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, you don't have a cap.
There's no cap. And so I need to buy a cap
Right.
to keep me cool, calm, and collected.
I do this at my job. My cap is on all day.
All day?
I mean, because they have AC on in the building.
They still have the AC on?
It'd be cold. Yeah, so.
That's trifling. It's October.
So
in New
I have
England.
my cap on.
I understand.
Yeah. If they ask me, I'll be like, just pull it up so they can see my bald head, and they laugh, All right. So, could you tell us a little bit about your, life growing up, your childhood experience?
Well, I am an immigrant. I love to say that because I've literally moved so many times before I was 8. I was born in Cameroon, left there when I was 6 months, then moved to Canada, lived there until I was about 7.5, and then I turned 8 here. And so in a short amount of time, there was a lot of transition that I don't think I fully understood. I just knew I had to follow my parents because what else was I going to do? And we moved to the U.S. And honestly, growing up, life felt really great. Whatever struggles my parents went through, I didn't feel it. They didn't allow me to feel it. I think subconsciously I may have captured it, but I didn't. It wasn't something I was focused on. I just knew, go to school, play outside, have fun, don't get in trouble. And so I was constantly into that mode. That was just all I had to do. And then, I had my siblings. I have 2 little brothers. And so it was making sure that they were okay. And we have a significant age gap. So I was like mom number 2 at home. But life felt good. It felt nice to just feel like a kid. I was really imaginative. I had a lot of zeal for just wanting things to be good. I really was that kid who enjoyed the fairy tale. I was the kid who enjoyed the happy ending because in my head it's it only makes sense. People have to be happy. You know what I mean? And so the darkness of real life things didn't hit me until I started my teens. And it hit me really hard. And I didn't really know what to do with it because in my head, again, I grew up believing in magic. Everything was great for me, despite the struggles that I subconsciously would witness my parents go through. And when I got into my teens, it was a shift. I went to a really small high school. My elementary school and middle school was quite diverse. So it was I just was with everybody. Granted, I did go through a lot of bullying when I was a kid too. And so if any of the darkness started was there, because kids were mean. Kids are mean now, but kids were mean back then too. And I was actually really insecure. Nobody knew that. They thought I was just out here trying to annoy everybody, but no, I was just being mean. And I always seemed to stand out. And so always people found a way to point that out in whatever ways they wanted to make fun of me for. So I got to high school, really small, no longer diverse. And again, I was still standing out. And it was awkward because now I'm I really am just myself. Granted, the bullying wasn't as severe as it was when I was younger, but I face a lot of different microaggressions as well from teachers, whether they realize it or not, whether they're making fun of my afro or not in class, or the fact that I'm from Africa. And it's all fun and games until you realize you still remember that and you're almost 30, So high school was interesting. I think high school is where I went through my first huge bout of depression. I didn't really know what it was. I just knew that happy part of myself was getting overshadowed dramatically, and it was really difficult for me. But that's also how I found Christ. So it was this weird space of extreme struggle, but also beauty at the same time. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have 2 younger siblings.
2 younger siblings.
And both your parents.
Both my parents.
To this day?
Till this day.
That's awesome. What was that like with, I know you mentioned that your parents did a good job with basically insulating you from, their issues. Because, that's, I guess, what good parents should do, right? What is your relationship like with, say, your father or with your mother?
Well, my parents actually ended up getting divorced in my late teens. And so that was hard for
That's
me.
part of that darkness.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was hard because then I started seeing more, right? So that was really, really difficult for me. And for a while, I was really angry. Because one, I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't fully get the full scope from their perspective. In my head, that didn't make sense. It just didn't compute, literally. But through that, I had to learn how to heal, to forgive, to not be so angry. And so me and my parents are cool. Like, I'm with my mom. She makes me laugh. She's crazy. She's great. My dad's the coolest, chillest guy I've ever met. You know what I mean? So it's no longer the same relationship it was when I was a teenager, but it's a healed relationship, and it's always healing, right? Because it's a tough thing to go through. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That you've been able to like heal, evolve, and like understand your parents as like people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I don't think a lot of kids are raised understanding that their parents are people. I know for a long time I saw my parents as like I put them on a pedestal. I'm like, they're my parents. Like, they're great. They don't make mistakes. They do everything right, and it's awesome. And then when I realized, oh snap, they're really human, I was like, whoa, what is this? And I had to learn to like my parents in their humanness,
Right.
and love them in their humanness. And that was also a struggle, but
Yeah, that's a battle.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's rough.
I still battle that. It's like my relationship with my mom and my father has like evolved as I've gotten older, obviously. But I've learned to like let go of the anger, the issues, or the frustrations I might have had with both of them, for different reasons. And to just accept them as who they are,
Right.
and just let go of whatever I had as a kid. Now that I understand life, understand myself a little bit more in dating, relationships, like, start to shift that idea,
Right.
what they shouldn't have done, It's like, okay, I understand, and now I can talk to them about life and my situations, and then they start to kind of reveal more about them with my situations, and it's like, we get to have that relationship again,
Right.
As a, parent to son, So for a long time, it was like I was an adult,
Right.
And we talked as like adults. So then now that I'm coming back and like kind of like, hey,
Right.
allowing them to give advice with, helping that relationship to kind of grow and heal. So
Yeah. The adult, like when we become adults and we meet our parents in our adulthood, it's a different place. And it's like, this is who I am. This is who you are. How are we going to strengthen or change our relationship? And it has to work both ways. And I don't think they always know that. Or they always see it in their minds. It's
I'm
like,
always your, yeah.
I've always been like this. But it's like,
I'm your mom.
eggs. Do you know how many times I've
You're
heard
right,
that?
but I'm grown.
But listen now, preaching to the choir, okay? Like, I have a whole adult mind now.
Yeah.
Work with me, please. It's a very interesting dynamic, but it's also when it's done with love and care and patience, it's so beautiful, because it's so many different stages of life where you need that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you learned from your parents? Like good and bad,
One of the best things that my dad taught me was communication. I remember I was that kid, and I get
Key to life.
Listen, it's literally so important, and you notice that in everything that you do. When I was a kid, I had a tone. I was bossy, and I got that from my mom. I know I did, and so she would get mad at me, and in my head, I'm like, but I got it from you. But my dad would tell me, like, if you spoke to me like that, I wouldn't respond to you. And so one day I said something to him in response to what he said, and he repeated to me in the same exact tone, and it hurt. I was like, oh no, is this what I sound like? He's like, yep, this is exactly what I keep telling you.
Yeah.
And so like it took, it was a very harsh lesson, but it was a very loving lesson because I needed to hear it. You don't always know until someone else repeats it back to you. And so, for years, and even till this day, I'm very aware of how my tone sounds. I still work on that because sometimes it comes out. I don't mean to, but, the way I want to give out the information is not necessarily the way it's received. And so I'm always working on that. So I really thank my dad for that. And his organization. Man, that man is organized. Like, my brain sees things and it's able to, like, place it, like, instantaneously. Specifically materials. It's really cool. So I'm grateful for that. My mom, her tenacity, she never gives up. That woman will go to the T. She, like, literally, how many degrees does this woman have? She has maybe 3 or 4 degrees now. Like, always going, always striving, always pushing for the best, which is, like, amazing, knowing where she came from to how she's had to move, to knowing to how she struggled to now that she's here, and to watch her always go, as exhausted as she is. It's blows my mind, honestly. But I can say both of my parents in their movement, the negative impact that it had was this survival mindset. They were always going. And so I think as a kid, I grew up not even realizing I was doing the same thing. And so I never learned to rest. I never learned to pause. And I think that's the negative part. And I've had to unlearn that for the past couple of years. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But they didn't mean to. This is just what they were raised into, right? And once you come here, it's like a rat race out here,
right.
Specifically as an American, as an immigrant, it's like, I gotta get a house, I gotta build, I gotta get a credit card, I gotta do this. But it's like, who's telling you to take it one day at a time? No one's telling you that.
It's not the American way.
It's not, but it's so detrimental because so many people fall so quickly, their health goes like that. Because they never slow down and they feel like they have this invisible timeline. That's what I call it, where if they don't do it in a specific age or whatever, they're gonna fall apart. And it's like, that's not what God wants for you. Like, that's not it.
It's not even how like life works.
No.
Life works in time.
Right.
And it flows.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know how to, like, get into the rhythm of life, move with your purpose, right? But when things happen, you have to shift and be okay with that,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And know what the 7 days, that God created the earth.
Listen.
He took one.
Listen. I was just talking to one of my friends about that. Just astounded at how cool God is. I was like, he really could have made all this instantaneously. He didn't have to take the time that he did, but he took time and then he paused. So if God is pausing, I'm going to stop. Like, I can stop. I have a day too. And I'm going to take advantage of that because I really think there's healing and restoration in that. There's like so much in it that's so beneficial to the next set of days that you get.
Yeah. So outside of your parents, do you have any other mentors or people that you kind of looked up to growing up that you learned from or maybe still have relationships with now?
Yeah. One of them is my best friend. Her name is Rose. She is a soul sent from God himself. I met her when I was 10. She told me we'd be best friends, and I was like, no. I refused. She was taller than me, and I was scared, so I didn't know what to do. But she's been my rock through so many things, like the darkest times of my life. She's the reason why I accepted Christ when I was 16 years old. Her faith is something that I always admired tremendously. Her growth as a young woman, as a woman of faith, her prayer, she's never, I don't even know if she's ever doubted God in her life because she's never even allowed me to see it. She's always pushed. She's always hung on. And that always inspired me to continue to push forward too. It transformed how I saw God in my life because she was one of the few kids that accepted me where I was, no matter where I was in my life. And that to me, I was like, that's what God's talking about when he says love. That's how you love your neighbor. That's how you take care of them. Even if they're doing wrong, you talk to them through that, but you're there for them, So she's definitely one of the biggest people, little does she know, that has held me down, to be quite honest. So her, I have, when I started going to church, there were a group of women, we started singing together. And there's 5 of us, each of us very distinctive personalities, very strong, strong-willed, strong faith. And they've definitely supported me tremendously. I look up to them because, their mothers, wives, fiancés now, and they literally have talked to me like a little sister, but in the best loving, caring, supporting kind of way. And it's been really awesome because they were the women that I would see at church and be scared to talk to because, in my head, I felt like I was still in high school. I was like, I don't know, maybe they're going to think I'm weird. I'm so used to this narrative of my old life.
The voices.
Yes, easily. And so when I realized that God literally brought us together with our voices, and through that we built stronger relationships, and they have definitely been people I go to when I need advice about certain things, or, when I just need some community. Like, when we're together, our community is, like, Jesus is in there. It's amazing how he does that. So they've definitely been influential. My parents, I have a couple other friends who I think God used to teach me how to slow down and how to enjoy the small things of life. And I'm really grateful for that. And all these people, the one thing they have in common is they accepted me where I was, because I grew up where kids never accepted me. And so to have people who saw me and just chose was everything for me. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
What are some of the things that you learned from them?
I learned stand up for myself. I definitely did. It's so funny. Like, growing up at church, I started going to church like faithfully when I was like 18, right? And so I was always seen as like a kid because my dad went to church with me, whatever may have you. And there was a point in time where I was growing up to be an adult, and my brain didn't switch over to like adulthood, and I was still not acting like a kid, but very much like receiving other adults like I was a kid. And then when I realized that I didn't have to do that, and I could still be polite and, firm and whatever may have you towards other adults, I was like, oh, and that's what they taught me. I have the right to have my opinion about something, be respectful, and also keep my boundaries, right? That's one of the biggest things I was taught. I was taught to calm down, because I'm always going.
I was going to say, what do you mean by calm down?
Yeah, no, I'm always going. Okay. I literally am that woman who was running 5,000 miles an hour, doing a bunch of different things, because I want to accomplish so many stuff, right?
Your mom.
Literally my mom.
Yeah.
But I would have these women pull me aside and be like, hey, you're tired. That's why you're sick. Like, your body's stopping you because you haven't stopped. And that's been one of the biggest gifts I've ever received. People telling me it's okay to slow down. You actually need it, or you're not going to make it to the next thing. Yeah. You don't have to pile on all this stuff because they're not your identity. Christ is. Yeah. And that truly started shifting my perspective on how I viewed my accomplishments, quote unquote. Life-changing.
Yeah, that is a hard shift, especially for us in our society, that the things we do, the things we achieve are our value. Because if it is our value, we're going to keep chasing it no matter what.
Exactly.
Right? And then it's like, oh, look what I've done. Look at all that I have. Look at, it's just never ending. That's the rat race, right?
It's so painful. Mentally, it is. I know people who go one degree after the next. Mind you, they're racking up debt, and I'm looking at them like, when are you going to pay this off? And it's like, oh, yeah, but I have this and I do that. And I'm like, that's great, and I'm proud of you. Like, you really made it through that. But are you actually content?
Right.
Like, God had to teach me a hard lesson on being content and just accepting the day that he's given me and the beauty in that. And that's where I'm supposed to be, and that's okay. And it was hard for me because in my head, I'm like, that's not enough. I need to do more.
Yeah.
But I was finding myself again running.
And that's the world.
Exactly.
This never-ending, satisfaction. I need more. I always need more. This is good, but I need better. And then we find ourselves doing that in our relationships too. Right? Like, oh yeah, I love this, but you're looking over there down the street. Right?
Listen.
Oh, look what they have. Well, they're more attractive, or they have more money, or
Listen.
they dress better.
That's when you think about that, just makes you think of social media in a heartbeat. That's literally what it is. It's this. You look at everything, it looks real clean and cute and cut and perfect, whatever. And people are like, oh yeah, this is what we have to do next. This is what we have to do next. But it's like, no one knows who's behind that. Like, no one knows people's deepest, darkest days. No one knows how much work it took them to probably take that one picture when they're probably not happy with themselves. It's so dangerous. It's such a dangerous path. It's very numbing. Very, very numbing.
Yeah. With that's another conversation.
Absolutely.
For sure. Man. So I have a question.
Yes.
You keep bringing this up. So you talk about, Christ and, your relationship with God, and you starting to go to church at 18. So can you talk about like your faith, your relationship with God, how that kind of came about, where you are now, and the influences that helped you kind of make those decisions.
Man, well, I remember I was 16. I accepted Christ on the darkest day of my life. The darkest day of my life. I had to call my best friend and tell her what happened. And she's like, get your Bible. And in my head, I was like, I have nothing to lose at this point. I literally don't want to live. So what else do I have? And she started telling me to go to all these verses. And I just started saying them out loud, screaming at the top of my lungs. Mind you, I was by myself in my house at the time, so no one knows what's going on. And she's like, get on your knees, we're going to pray. And she's like, do you accept Christ? Do you accept Christ? And literally, when they talk about the faith of a mustard seed, that's all I had. I didn't have anything in me. I was depressed for months. It was too dark. Couldn't talk to anybody. Had no one to talk to besides my best friend. And she's a kid my age, so it's there's not as much, but God used her to just tell me, just do it. I'm going to show you that I'm here for you and I see you. And it's not like it had changed my heart instantaneously. It wasn't some magical shift, but it was the realization that I could call out to Christ and he would hear me. And so my depression, I think it lasted maybe a year. It took time to heal from that. But from then on, I just kept chasing after God. I had believed in Christ when I was a kid. My dad prayed with me, whatever may have you. But that true acceptance was when I was 16 in that dark place. And I just kept chasing. I was like, I know that you are real. I know, and I want to know you, and I want to understand, because this love thing that you are looks real good to me. It looks real promising to me. And so that's how it grew. I just kept going. I don't even know how else to describe that. I just kept going because I kept seeing how dark things were. That childhood likeness in me where I believed in fairies and magic and all that was disappearing. Because I realized that's not it. That's just all TV, right? And I was like, God has to be real because there has to be good in this world somewhere, somehow. So high school, praying a lot, reading my word, praying with my best friend. By senior year, it was, I think, the summer of senior year when I started going to church with my dad at the SDA church in Braintree.
The what?
SDA church in Braintree,
yeah,
yes.
Okay. Seventh-day Adventist.
Seventh-day, yes, sorry,
For
yes.
those that don't know.
Seventh-day Adventist church in Braintree, yes. I started going there, and I didn't even start going with anything in mind. My dad was like, if you want to come, you can come. I was like, cool, okay. And the way I started was going to Bible study, actually. And it wasn't, that's the thing, it wasn't even introduced to me as a Bible study. It was like, you should just go to X, Y, and Z's house and hang out with them. And I had seen them in church before, my friends Jovia and Chris, awesome people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Okay.
The Lord used them in magnificent ways in my life. And I went to their house and I was honestly shocked. It's just a bunch of black people hanging out, talking about Jesus, like he's the dude next door and that's the best friend, you know? Yeah. And I'd never heard about Christ like that before. I didn't know Christ was that real like that. And so that's what kept me wanting to go. I was like, oh, you are real. I'm not dreaming this. Like, this is not some random feeling I have. This is a very honest thing in my life. And so I kept going. I kept going to their house. I kept hanging out, kept meeting more people, going to church. And I kept growing in my faith in that. And time and time again, college comes around. You know, college is a whole whirlwind of a world, right? I went to UMass Amherst, huge school. As everybody knows, the party school, yeah. But it was harder, not because of the partying, because I didn't care much for that. It was hard because it was a big world. I'd never gone to such a big school before. I was by myself for the most part. I did a major, had 2 minors. I wanted to do more, and I got caught up. I really got caught up. I made some really dumb decisions. Also, my parents were getting divorced. So there was so much happening at such a short amount of time where I didn't know what to do. So even when I was falling apart, I was calling God. Even when I was crying in my room, I was calling God. Every time. And God is so good because he heard every prayer. Even the prayers I couldn't pray, he'd hear me. And I would see that because, you know, I'd look back 6 months, a year later, and I'm like, wow, you really did that. Like, you really got me. Time and time again, the things I struggled with, wow, you really got me. And it always fascinated me how God interpreted our inner prayers. the things we don't have the words for, he knows. And so whenever I was praying, even if I didn't have enough words, he was already praying for me. And knowing that and seeing that, and there were a few people at school actually who were Christ followers as well, and they would pray for me too, and that was cool. And so my journey kept growing because I really did not stop, and because I knew I couldn't. Even by senior year of college, I did the rat race, and I was sick all year. The whole year, my body gave out. It was done. It was like, you did too much, and now we're tired. And it was only through Christ that I graduated. I almost didn't have any money to finish my spring semester, and God gave me like grants to make it. You know what I'm saying? Like literally dropping all these little things to keep me and sustain me. And I was like, oh my goodness, he sees me. So, I graduated college. I actually got baptized back in 2018. Really? I made the decision.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple years ago. It's still recent. It took a while for me to get there because I wanted to make sure I understood what I was doing. I didn't want to just do it to do it. I want to know I'm doing this because my whole life God has shown me who he is, shown me how much he loved me. It's time. It was just so perfect. And I remember I was doing a study with my pastor at the time, and he said something about how Christ, it was something along the lines of Christ knows us so well that we don't even realize we want to hear him. And something clicked, and literally I was in tears. I was like, the Holy Spirit's with me right now. There was peace that I could not understand, and I literally was like, yo, I'm covered and I'm okay. So that's been my journey. Fast forward to today, God again just continually showing me how close he is to me. And again, for a kid who really struggled feeling accepted and wanted, to know that the mighty creator wants her.
How does he do that for you?
So I got COVID.
Because I know, like, we as people talk, especially when it comes to God. Like,
right.
He speaks to me, or he shows me, and then, like, for someone that might not understand that, to like,
what do you mean?
How does he show you? You know what I mean? He's not like your father walking in front of you. Like, look at this piece of paper. So how does he do that for you?
True. I'll tell you. Last year, I got COVID. I was out. And I remember staying in my bed and being upset that I couldn't work, being upset that I couldn't move and do the things that I normally do. And literally was impressed upon my heart to slow down, like stop, day in and day out. And I'd be like, okay, God, I don't know, because I couldn't talk to anybody like that. Like I barely saw anyone. So I would pray, and loud, like it was so loud in my head, slow down, just take it today. And that's how I was able to start even working on my business again. It was just slow down. And it's so wild. Every day when I do like a devotional, it's about slowing down. Every single devotional I've done has been taking it one day at a time. It's been about relying on him, relying on his strength, relying on the fact that he has me for the day present. I had a situation that happened back in May where I had to help a friend out. That whole week, literally God was telling me to just pray to be available for her every single day. And every time I would call her, it was exactly what she needed. Every time I would show up at her front door, it was the exact time she needed me to do. And it was honestly kind of wild. We both looked around like, okay, God, we see you. Yeah. And I realize now that the reason why God was telling me to slow down before was to prepare me for that, for that week. For that week specifically, because I wasn't doing this for myself. I literally was so, mind you, I was working. I had a job. I would call them and tell them I have a family emergency. I can't make it, because I realized God was calling me for that whole week for her in every single way possible. But the rest that like overcame our souls was crazy. Wow. As busy as we had to get things done for whatever she needed, there were moments where we would pray and everything would be smoothed out every time. And so it was incredible to see, to not only feel it spiritually, but also physically, right? When you're moving so much, but to feel that, like kind of like when you get a blanket on because you're too tired and you just rest. Yeah. That's what we kept feeling. And it was wild, specifically for two women who are always running around. And so I think one of the biggest ways, I don't even know if I answered your question properly yet, but it's really through prayer, meditation with Christ, a lot of times devotions. if I'm reading a specific verse, it's just all lined up. It lines up so well, I can't make it up. It always falls in the theme of slow down, take it today. Stop focusing about tomorrow or what happened yesterday. I literally only gave you these 24 hours, so that's all I need you to look at. Yeah, he's been loud.
And so your evolution in your relationship with God, being from 18 to where you are now, all these different life experiences. And so with all of that, like what is faith to you? Like, what does faith mean?
Faith.
What does it look like?
It is literally me believing in something I cannot see, but trusting that God is just real and good and present in my life. There are many things that I can't see. The reason why I was always running the rat race is because I want to control things. I naturally like to fix. And when I realized that I really couldn't fix, and only God could do that, I was like, oh. And when I started seeing my prayers of faith come into fruition and being answered, it increased my faith even more. So faith is knowing that I might not see the result right now. It'll come exactly when it needs to. Faith is putting my whole heart in Christ's hands and knowing that he has it. It's not even a feeling anymore. It's just knowing. Because sometimes my feelings aren't great. Sometimes I don't feel like doing anything. Sometimes I feel pretty alone. But I have to remind myself, who made me? Who knows how much hair I have on my head? Whose thoughts the thoughts he has towards me are greater in number than sand. Like, that's crazy to me. But it's like he's shown me that before. He'll show it to me again. So faith is more than a feeling. It's literally placing my whole self into the Creator and then leaving it there and waiting for him to do what he does best.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. And so I want to circle back to your father, right? And so you talked about some of the things that you learned from him. How has your relationship with your father benefited your relationships with men?
Oh, gosh, that's a question.
Benefited or, whatever.
I hear you. So my father's a very chill man. When you meet him, granted, when everybody sees him for the first time, they're scared because he just looks like he's like interrogating you. But he's such a sweetheart. He's such a sensitive man. I learned more about his sensitivity as I got older. He's very caring, puts his heart in everything. I think I get a lot of that from him as well. When I was a kid, I was daddy's little girl. Like, I would go to him before I went to my mom because my mom would be yelling at me. So it was easy to go to my dad. But as I got older, I felt like he didn't understand me as much. But that's also because I'm a teenager. And, it's a different things to break at that point.
Teenage girl.
Yeah, exactly.
That has crossed over.
Exactly.
That's all I like to say. They cross over.
It's a crossover.
It's another person.
And he became very protective. And I was like, what is going on around here? But looking back now, I get it, right? But also there are parts that weren't always the healthiest. I think, as timid and as cool and as chill as my dad is, there might be more parts that need a little bit more push. So that's the side of my mom that I have. That's why I'm going as fast as I do. My dad's meticulous but slow. Sometimes I can't stand that. And so I don't always see things the way he does. I'm better now because I've learned to work with that, but it will get on my nerves because I'm like, Dad, like, we got to go. Like, what are we doing? He's like, stop. I've already planned it out for like 10 years. I'm like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make sense to me. So I struggled with that for a while because my person wanted to do more now. And it may not have always worked well for me, but it was like, let's just get it done. I think when, my parents were divorced, I highly disliked my dad. I was angry. I think both of my parents, to be quite frank. It was really hard. It was really, really hard because I was 18. It's not like I'm 10. I'm 18 and I'm aware, and that's hard, right? So I was really upset, and I ran 2 relationships because I no longer trusted my home. And that was hard for me to even recognize. I only recognized this maybe after college, to be honest. Like, the decisions I would make with men was based off of my heart. It was based off of my desire to feel like I could be home. Because I didn't feel like I was at home. Home no longer felt like home because home was broken in my head. And so I would be in relationships, give my absolute all with no boundary, which is so dangerous at that age, right? No boundary, because I was convinced if I do this, they'll stay. If I do this, they'll love me too. So extremely dangerous, because now I'm just giving someone open window to do whatever they wanted. And they have their own baggage and trauma too that they don't know they haven't addressed. And now that's coming in too. And so and it's so crazy because I know my parents really tried to protect me and do the best that they could. And I know they still do with the best that they have. So I'm not even upset with them looking back now, right? But back then I'm like, I don't trust you. You're trying to protect me from what? Look what you guys did. That was really my mindset. And it's hard to say that today because that sucks. Like, you never want to think about that. But that's really the reality that I was in at that time of my life. And so my relationship with guys was hard. It was really hard because I was looking for things. Yeah. But then again, God is good because he was constantly reminding me and he was being patient with me. It's not in them, it's in me. It's not in them, it's in me. And so it was years of me realizing my validation is not because they think I'm cute. It's not because they think I'm smart. It's not them. Yeah. It's literally just me, Christ, right? And it took a while for me to get out of that. Yeah.
And your relationship with him is good now, like you said.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Right.
That's my pops. I go visit him. He's chilling, always feeding me. It's great.
So with all of that, what is manhood? And what is manhood, and with your understanding of, the word, God, your father, men, society, all that.
Manhood. When I think of manhood, I really think of like a fortress, like something that really holds. It doesn't always have all the pieces together, but it holds. It holds well. I'm gonna talk about my little brother real quick. He is 21 now. He is the coolest young man I've ever met in my life. I'm like his biggest fan. He has had to grow up very quickly, right? He was at a pretty interesting age range when my parents got divorced, and he had to see that too. And he internalized a lot of things and had to learn to grow past a lot of things and heal through a lot of things. And I see him push. I see him talk about legacy. I see him talk about wanting to be better for our family. This desire to like carry everything. Granted, there's unhealthiness in that as well, for sure. I was going to talk about that. it's unhealthy for sure.
It's not your bag,
It's definitely not.
Not your bag.
No, it's not. But I also see him pushing every day to be better. And I think manhood is this constant desire to follow Christ in wherever you're called to follow Christ. Men look different in whatever range of the world you are in, but I think a core to that is this fortress of love that you can go to, right? When I used to think about my dad as a kid, I knew that when I stepped into his arms, he held me. Wherever I was, he held me. When I have really good guy friends, they hold me. They don't question too much, but they hold me there. They're willing to admit when they mess up. They're willing to apologize. They're willing to, admit that they're having a really rough day and they need some company. They need a friend. They need to talk to. They need to pray with. It's a vulnerability to it as well. It's not this stone wall that you can just stand on, but it's a human being who has a lot of responsibilities, but also has a lot of love and sensitivity worth looking at and investing into. And I've been fortunate enough to have sprinkles of men in my life that I've seen that through, with my friends who are married. They, I've seen them, definitely not in their hardest days, right? But I've seen them go through some stuff and them being honest. That honesty and that vulnerability is everything to me. Because again, in our world, men are supposed to hold everything. That's not real. Like, men very much need to be held, very much need to be listened to, very much need that space. And when they accept that, they grow even stronger. Little do they know. And then the dependency on Christ, it's out the water now. Like, once you got that dependency on Christ, it's like, okay, God, how are you going to work in me to build that courage, that boldness, that strength, that vulnerability, that openness, right? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I think about what you just said about, when men learn to depend on Christ. I look at it as I'm understanding myself a little bit more and kind of like things that I've heard lately. But it's basically the issue with the armor, like as a man, like you said about having to carry all this and, we have to present to the world like we're tough and we got it all together and, strong, and that's our armor. Like we have to keep the armor on all the time. But when you come to Christ, Christ says, let down your armor and take up on mine. Right? And that allows you then to be vulnerable, loving, caring, you know what I mean? Peaceful, because you let go of that armor that says you need to be guarded and tough and strong, appear that way anyway, but that's where the real strength is, over there. Like I've let down this armor that I thought was good. When I take up on his armor, it actually is a place of strength where I can walk in that freedom to be vulnerable, to love others no matter what, and to care for people, to take care of my community. Like that's where real strength is, in manhood, because you're walking in the strength of the Lord to empower you to be, who you need to be, not that armor that society said this, that's more of like a prison.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you said prison. It definitely is, whether people realize it or not. It makes you feel like you always have to keep going at 100, and it doesn't tell you that you can stop when you don't feel like that.
Doesn't tell you can feel.
Exactly. It really breaks my heart. I think of the young boys that I would see when I was in school who would quote unquote act out. Looking back now, they were really hurting. Like these boys were struggling, like deeply struggling. And I see them now and they are realizing, and they're like, and mind you, we're all almost 30. So it's like, it's harder as you become an adult to realize, oh snap, I'm still hurting from things when I was 10 and no one talked to me about it. No one was available for me, or they just didn't even know. And now I have to deal with it. But there's strength in recognizing that and then choosing to heal from that too. Yeah.
I do this thing where when I meet people, I picture them as kids. Yeah, try to picture you. Like, what type of person were you when you were a kid? Because that helps me to try and understand you now. Because all of us are who we were when we were kids. We're just more evolved.
Right.
If we haven't, like, grown and healed, you know what I mean? If I'm chasing to be cool and, okay, what did you look like when you was, or the boss that loves his power at a Staples,
right?
You know what I mean? Like that guy that wants to be, I'm the boss.
Right.
All right, who was you when you were? Did you get bullied a lot?
Right.
Did you have abusive parents?
Yeah. Did you feel small back then?
Right. So now you have to
feel big.
Or that guy at the bar ready to fight.
Right.
What happened when you was,
at the gym at school? You know?
You always have to be the tough guy. Okay, something happened. So that's what. Because I look at myself that way too. So anyway,
that's really cool though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So back to you. So this is our final question,
okay.
And then you can talk a little bit more about the work you do, your vision. But the final, most important question that we have here is hashtag who am I? Hashtag who am I? So, I'm going to ask you, who are you? Just let us know. Who are you?
I am a child of immigrants. I am an immigrant. I am a person who's extremely compassionate. I'm very loyal. I am a go big or go home type of person that has its perks and its negatives too. I am the type of person who just wants to love on people as much as I can. People find it hard to believe when I say I don't like someone or someone just doesn't mesh with my personality. I love to sing. Singing is a way that God has allowed me to express myself, specifically when I want to worship Him. I am talkative. I could talk for hours, but I also love stories. I love hearing other people's stories. I'm one that feels very humbled and honored when someone's willing to share their story. I love providing a space of home. Home is not just a building or whatever. It's a heart place, and I love that place. And I think certain people in my life hold that for me, and I hold that for them. I am adventurous to an extent. I don't do heights. Don't ask me to do heights. But I do enjoy nature tremendously. I have a fascination with sunlight, trees, and the blue skies. Like I'm 12 again. I am silly. I love a good laugh. I could laugh for hours. I love to eat. I love a good meal. I get it from my mama. She's a really good cook. I'm really grateful for her. You know what I'm saying? I'm dedicated. I love joy. And I just love community. That's where I've grown the best, when people have just said, it's okay, just come here. How Christ just welcomed me into his arms too. So that's me, Stacy, Kimberly Tchouanguem, my whole government. But it's like, it's so funny. When I first came out here, people would ask me, like, do you have like an African name? I'm like, I don't know what that means. Yeah. My mom literally is very like Eurocentric, so she gave me a really, really English name.
Okay.
Yes. But yeah, I'm multilingual. I speak French. It's my first language. I can't read it anymore though, so don't ask me that. But yeah, and I like to just learn new things, try new things. But I also like to take my time. I've learned that that's my greatest gift right now in life. So
that's awesome.
Me. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Now, can you sing in French?
I feel like if I was to try and I remember the lyrics, I could probably do a little something. You know what I mean? Can't make a promise though.
I thought I would try to throw a little curve in there.
That's an intense curve, I'll tell you that.
All right, I think so. One thing I like, about what you said as far as who you are, is you like to be a sense of home. I think did I get that right? Mm-hmm. And home being a heart place. Mm. And I think like what stuck out when you said that was my understanding of Christ this year, where I've done like a study in like the commands of Christ, and it's like everything he said was a command. So basically, it's a study of everything he's ever said, right? So, but it was like an understanding I had of him that I never understood by receiving messages and like listening to people speak or preach about Christ. And, oh, Christ said this. That's great. But when I read the words and I started to read them over, back to back, like that meaning behind everything that he was saying was your heart. It's not that he, let me go talk to the woman on the well just because, it's a heart issue. He wasn't going to hang out with the Pharisees and them. That's not where he needed to be. Right. He needed to be amongst the people to help the heart issue, and that's our issue, And so for you to be, trying to be a place of, home, for people, that gives me a sense of Christ, at least that Christ is working through you and using you to be a sense of home to help people's hearts. That's dope.
Amen. I never thought about it like that. Amen. That's cool. Thank you.
No doubt. All right. So, if you, this is your time, if you want to ask a question or if you just want to talk about, your Sikh ministry. Okay.
I got you.
Yeah, please.
I got you.
I got it all messed up today.
So it is pronounced Sikh Ministries.
Okay, Sikh Ministries.
Or SK Ministries. And that's like the overall organizational name. But right now the programming is SK Mentoring, so Sikh Mentoring. And it is something God's been building me for years. And I'm blessed. I'm going to tell you this right now. Like, as much as I'm giving this out to people, it's rewarding to me in ways people don't understand. It's helping me really walk into the purpose God has called me to be in. It allows me to talk to youth all the time, which is like my favorite thing to do. And it also allows me to be myself, be honest about my experiences, realize that what I went through was not for nothing. It was to share with others and let them know they can get through it too. whether they know Christ or not. It's creating that home, that platform for them. And so that's that's like, I feel at home. I kid you not. I really love what I do. The girls that I work with are amazing spirits, amazing souls who just want to feel at home. And I get to create that space for them. And then they get to go into the world and be their very best selves and know that they're okay in being themselves and that they don't need to be anybody else at all.
Yeah.
So that's what I do right now. So if you guys know any young women ages 16 through 24 who just need a place to talk to, get some sound advice about school, about work, about how to navigate friendships, or how to figure out, what should I do with my life, send them over to me. They can find me on Instagram at seek_mentoring. That's SEEK_mentoring. There's a link in bio. Message me. I'm super friendly. Talk to me. I like to talk to people. So, yeah.
All right. Well, this was awesome. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to interview you and to have you on the Follow Then Lead podcast.
I'm grateful. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. So until next time, peace.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Follow Then Lead podcast. You can reach us on social media at
The email is followthenleadinc@gmail.com, Instagram, Follow Then Lead Podcast, and our Twitter is Follow Then Lead P. Until next time,
take it easy.
Word.